Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. We are going live right after the BYU-Bama game, and I don't know if there's a whole lot. We're going to get into the game, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the season and what it means for BYU, and probably even get into what we have looking forward to going forward into next year. So please come join us. Get in the chat. Want to get all your thoughts and feelings. It's going to be a rough one, I think, but, I think there's a lot to say and a lot to be happy with right now for this BYU team and for all that they've accomplished. So if you haven't already, if you're new to the show, welcome. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. It helps a lot as we reach out to get more and more Cougar fans here involved in the chat and in the conversation. So anyway, it was what a game. What an interesting game. BYU fought hard and did a lot of things, I think, pretty well, according to the game plan, but unfortunately, it did not work out. Florida got really hot, and I think BYU's game plan, going under screens and kind of daring them to shoot maybe too much and eventually shoot themselves out of the game, never happened and never came to fruition. They were lights out. So, credit to Alabama, and just an unreal shooting night. Nobody would expect shooting at that high a volume, at that high a percentage. I mean, it's impossible to beat anyone, but BYU took their chances and kind of thinking the math would work out. Because if you think about it, if you're trading like 2 3-point shots at 33%, which is maybe an average, that's probably low for Alabama. But they're thinking, eventually, you go high volume, you're going to start cooling off. That would be shouldn't do math on the fly here, but yeah, you got 2 3-pointers at 33. That's 2 points versus 2 2-pointers at a much higher clip. You think 75-80%, then that is going to you're going to get more points that way. I guess if it's 75%, you get 3 points. So I think they took their chances, hoping to get them in foul trouble and hopefully to force their defense to collapse onto BYU. I'm guessing was the plan. If they're going in, getting physical, keeping the game close, which they did initially. And even when the game was, even going into the beginning of the second half and for a stretch there, even with in low double digits, it felt like BYU had a chance there. The game wasn't really too far out of reach with the way the game was going, with the pace it was moving at. But you have to think BYU really had to execute perfectly, continue to push, continue to get them into foul trouble. And then Alabama ultimately needed to miss a couple threes so that BYU could go and make them pay for it on the other end. And I think if the game stays close, eventually my guess, Alabama eventually has to start collapsing in on BYU on defense. And that would then open up the 3-pointers, allowing BYU to then match Alabama there. Because we know that when BYU heats up from 3, that they can play with anybody, but they were never able to get it going. But let's go to some of the comments here. 1-2 says, BYU worst 3-point night plus Bama best 3-point night equals surprised how close it actually was. That is a really good point. And that's how you felt like the whole game, right? Is that even when the score was, like at halftime, even Bama up was 11, and you thought, well, with the way that they're shooting the 3 and on both teams, how poorly BYU was shooting, how well Bama was shooting, you'd think that surely, and Kevin Young even said this at the halftime interview, it said eventually they're going to cool off and we'll get our looks and we'll start heating up. And neither of those things happened at all. And so you're right. The fact that they shot, 66 field goals attempts, and 51 of those from 3, and hitting 25 essentially half of them at that volume. It is just insane. Whereas BYU got 30 shots, 3-pointers up, which I think BYU is okay with attacking the paint, getting fouls, and not getting up as many 3-pointers. But I think we certainly expected to hit more of those. At least, you'd think at least like 12 of those. And now ultimately I guess, hitting 18 more points. I mean, it's still a blowout, but it changes the dynamic. I mean, maybe some of those are slowing down some of those runs or whatever, and the game shifts a little bit. So it's when those shots happen and the moment can, change the pace, change the momentum there, but it never happened. And just as it felt like BYU was going to, they hit a three, things were flowing. It felt like, this is the time. They'd just come back and match it with a three of their own. They were just unstoppable. Every time you watch a three go up, you just think, surely this one can't go in as well. And they did. They did. So, good point, though. I mean, it's amazing it was as close as it was. I mean, BYU scored 88 points. You'd think that this would have at least been a bit closer. So, I don't know. Tough one. Roy Wall says, well, that went poorly, to say the least. Great season despite the nasty ending. Yeah, not a fun way to go out on a blowout. Although, would it have been worse to lose like on a buzzer beater by Alabama, knowing that we were that close? Whereas this one, it's like, okay, you know what? It just wasn't our night. It wasn't a good matchup because they're similar teams, but ultimately Bama had more depth and more shooting, and therefore it wasn't a good matchup. Maybe you just, okay, we live with that. But if it had been close and within grasp, that might have stung even more. I don't know. 1-2. Most 3-pointers made in 4,500 plus games ever played in the NCAA tournament. That's what it takes to beat BYU. Yeah, I mean, shoot. I mean, BYU has gone up against a lot of very good teams this year, even some top 10 teams. But it looks like when you're going up against a top, 6, top 5 type team, all of a sudden, things turn drastically. So I think it goes to show, BYU, obviously nobody was expecting BYU to be a top 5 team coming into this season, but also goes to show you how top heavy college basketball is right now with the best teams and just how deep it is and how good they are. So, but it took an incredible shooting night from Alabama. One that, that they'll likely never see again. And, to beat BYU and, again, hats off to them. BYU football joining the chat says nothing to hang about. Nobody beats Alabama the way they shot ball tonight. It's true. Nobody would be able to beat them shooting like that. But then you have to think back to why were they able to shoot so well? Was it scheme? Was it lack of defense? Or were they going to hit those no matter what? And there were moments where it definitely looked like they were just going to hit threes no matter what. So, but they're a very good team. So it's frustrating. It's sad. It's disappointing. But you're right. Nothing to really hang our heads over. But 75 of Alabama's points come from the 3-point line. Yes. And what was the breakdown tonight? It was, I reckon, quite a bit more than that. So I don't know. It felt like it at least. But Gage Bentley says their 3-point percentage was crazy. Yeah, it's unreal, especially at that high of a clip. You would expect one or the other, but to have both of them on the same night, I mean, it's essentially like guarding a bunch of Steph Currys out there. It's insane. Patricia Cat says, good season, BYU. Hey, thank you for coming back and joining us. If I'm not mistaken, you're our Yale patron here, supporting us. So appreciate you hopping in the chat again, and had a disappointing loss for Yale. We were pulling for you in that first round too, but Sir Robin says they got hot. What else is there to say? They got hot and they never cooled down. BYU had nothing they could do to really slow them down and stop them. I mean, when you go through and look at it, and here, let's pull up the stat sheet. And if I zoom in a little bit here, I mean, you look at it, you got somebody. Oh, sorry, that was free throw. But I mean, you have a few guys that aren't doing anything, and still 5 of 11, still really good. Wish we had that. But 10 of 16, it really felt like more than that. And I don't remember him missing 6 times. I can remember a couple times, but and then 2 of 2. But these other guys weren't really making us pay, and yet we still weren't able to slow down these couple guys who were really just cooking us. So it really felt like we had a chance there. But then, you start the second half and it felt like everything was going well. It felt like BYU was getting what they wanted. I think you got to stop or a turnover, hit a three. Things were okay. BYU could do this to get back in it. And, there's the technical, which obviously was ridiculous. Ultimately, that didn't make the game, but you have to wonder, okay, if the momentum is able to keep going in BYU's favor, maybe they get a stop. Unlikely, right? But maybe they're able to get a stop. Maybe they go back and score again. All of a sudden, the score is different. The other, Bama's playing a little bit different. BYU's playing a little different. You never know. And if it's able to stay in reach, you never know what would have happened. Whereas tonight, obviously, they just blew the doors off. Now, I'm not suggesting that technical foul made the difference in this game, but it could have turned out to be a very different game. And it's just frustrating and annoying. I don't know what it is about Trevin Nell that he gets so many calls on him. It feels like there's a stretch there where it was like almost every game. Then there's obviously Tony Padilla, everyone's favorite ref. So who knows? But what are we? Well, just about them getting hot. But yeah, what could BYU have done differently to really shut them down? I mean, they've even tried double teams and on Sears, and nothing really seemed to work. But yeah, they were hot. There's no stopping them tonight. 1-2 says, just think of it. 4,518 games played over 85 years, and we get the one game against the team who shot the most threes and made the most threes in all of history. Not meant to be, man. Yeah, absolutely. They were just locked in, and there was, like I said, when they were shooting, there was just really no stopping that. It was unreal. It was unbelievable watching it, and it just wasn't. And you're right. So there's, for me, I think it's just one of those games, and you just shake their hands, walk off, and say, "Hey, we had a great season." And it was not our night, and Bama had it going on. So 1-2 says both BYU football and basketball this season were awesome this season and better than anyone expected, yet a little disappointing in the end. Yeah, for both of them. No, I don't even think it was this. This game was disappointing because of obviously how badly BYU got beaten, but they were two good teams. This was a game that leaned Alabama, but was probably pretty even on paper in many ways. You looked at a lot of stats that I know, like Greg Wrubell shared a lot of stats of just how eerily similar these two teams were in many regards. It felt like the edge was to Alabama, but BYU could hang in this, and with a good game plan and good execution that they could make it happen. And it didn't, and that's fine. But I think making it to the Sweet 16 was I think kind of the hey, if BYU, if they're able to click the season, if with all the excitement in the preseason, we're looking at this team. People talked about, hey, this team could make the Sweet 16, and they did. They made the Sweet 16, and they had a great run. So I feel like BYU football, had more of a letdown at the end of the season because of all that was there in front of them and the way that they lost. Whereas this was just like, there was no beating Alabama with them shooting like that. And you know what? Honestly, even if BYU had made the Elite Eight, most likely they're playing Duke. I don't know if I see them winning that game, although you certainly want to try. And again, you couldn't have been too disappointed going in against Duke and losing to them either, because they're really, really good team. So regardless, I don't think this team really let down. Obviously, there was that game against Houston, but for me, they ended this season really strong. There's a lot to be proud of, and there's a lot to talk about where this season for this team. And now let's move on. Let's move on from the game. And actually, I want to finish off a couple comments, and then I want to move on to thoughts on the season and this team and what it means. And friggin' Gators just beat Maryland. I mean, I have the Gators winning it, but dang it, at least a Big Ten team is out. But silver lining there. But another SEC team. So BYU football says Alabama is deep with athletes that can make you pay from the three-point line. Usually you can adjust, but not when all of them are hot at the same time. What do you do? I mean, all of them. I mean, some of them weren't. It was mostly Sears, but yeah. And then Holloway. I mean, he was high volume, but 6 of 13, still a very good percentage there. So, but you'd think with that many misses that you'd be able to get some more points, but they got only 10 offensive rebounds, but it felt like more than that, and they were able to make BYU pay on those. So yeah, they were deep, and that was one advantage that BYU had this season on teams, is how deep they were and different looks they could throw at you, whereas Bama was also deep, but they're all shooting threes. And tonight BYU just wasn't. I mean, what did Demon have, 1 of 7 or something? 1 of 8, yeah, because he took another one late where he's trying to force it. I really wanted to see BYU at least get to 90 points, but not that any of that really mattered at that point. I really liked that Kevin Young ended the game with giving a couple young guys action, but then getting the seniors on the floor for one last go. And, I think it's fitting that the season ended with Foose doing his thing down low. I think those are the final 2 points from BYU of this season, with Foose doing his thing. And then the last BYU shot was Trevin Nell missing a 3. So again, very fitting. No, I don't want to dog on Nell too much. I think he showed a lot this season. So, it's going to be hard to replace, as streaky of a 3-point shooter as he could be. It's going to be hard to replace someone that can shoot the 3 like him, because when he's on, it is a pretty shot. 1-2 says, the funny thing is how Bama got crushed by 22 points just a few games ago in the SEC tournament. Wild variation. Yeah, I mean, that's anything. I mean, and that's the fun thing about a single game elimination, is it can all come down to the night and the matchup. I mean, if you play a series, 3 a little bit iffy, but obviously the more games you play, the more, especially a 7-game series, like more often than not, very rarely is the team that's not better going to win that game. So it makes it fun. There's more variables to it, and that's where you can get the crazy upsets. But tonight was not one of those nights. And honestly, I think if these two teams play a 7-game series, I don't think it goes real well for BYU. But I mean, obviously Bama's not going to shoot like that in every game. They'll have a letdown, and BYU will have a better 3-point shooting night. But I think it was a tough matchup just because these were so similar. But I think from top to bottom, Bama was deeper and better 3-point shooting. So at the end of the day, that was the difference. So Charles Todd Barnum says BYU is going to be good next year. It is exciting. Yeah. So we had started moving on to, thanks for that. And I do want to be positive, because this is a bummer of a game, but again, we all agree, like there's no real competing with Bama with them shooting like this. But looking at what BYU accomplished, what they're able to do in a short time, because just Kevin Young coming in and recruiting, keeping key players, and then helping those key players elevate their games and bringing in and infusing new talent, taking a while for them to gel. And remember, Demon and Hall were both injured at different points and early in the season to really figure out that lineup. And it took a while for Kevin Young to figure out the lineup that he wanted and which guys were going to play and how they were going to play, and for everyone to gel together. Moet Mag wasn't starting, wasn't getting a lot of minutes. He had moments where he was frustrating because on offense, he'd make a nice cut, but then do something silly with the ball sometimes. And on defense, you saw flashes or good moments, but then also some boneheaded things. And then when he got starting, you really see him settle into the game, and he became a very crucial component of this basketball team. So I guess for me, more than the loss, because I never expected BYU to win the whole tournament. Um, I don't think most of us did. I mean, my son, his bracket, he had BYU going all the way, but he's 6. But I think more for me is that the season's over. Like, we're not going to see Foose again. That's hard. Like, Foose has been on the team for a while, and I just love Foose. Trevin Nell has been on forever. Like, great for him. It's probably time for him to move on with his life. But all these seniors, Mag, who just got here, became a quick fan favorite for, I think, most of us. And again, hard to like, oh man, this team was so fun, and we don't know what's going on next year. And so for me, that's kind of the hardest part, is that the season's over, and we have to come to terms with that. That I loved watching this team, and I loved how they came together. And when they were clicking, it was so much fun. They gave so much, and to see them really come together and gel, and gave us so many really awesome moments throughout the season. So for me, that, like, more than the loss, more than not moving on, more than not like making history for BYU, getting to the Elite Eight, maybe having a chance at the Final Four, is that it's over. The season's done, just like that. And to end on such a lousy game like that, after BYU's given us so many good moments, is the hardest part, I think, for me. And to say goodbye to these guys, I don't know why. That's the nature of college. People come and go, but some of these guys that have stuck with the program for so long, for so many years, which is really rare in this day and age with the portal. And you have stories like Trey Stewart, who rode it out on the bench and came in and still in relatively limited minutes, usually, around 10, 11 minutes. And yet he came in and played a crucial role and was there, and he was kind of a glue guy and supported the team. And now, they're done, and this component of this team is over. And what's worse is we don't know, like, is Demon coming back? I would say, if he has a shot at being a lottery pick, he should probably go do that. But there's some talk that maybe he comes back. And Richie Saunders, like, is staying a year going to help him at all? Like, he's already a little bit older because of the mission. His name recognition is really high right now. He's had a great season, and he's got the tater tot thing. Everyone's talking about him at this point. If he's thinking, hey, if I have a chance to get into the league, should I go ahead and do that? Granted, he can probably make just as much money, if not more. Well, probably not more, but like, I don't know, for being like a late second round pick. And I have no idea what his NIL situation is, but it's probably pretty good that if he thinks he can, help his draft stock. I just don't know if he will be able to. And you look what Jackson Robinson did. He took a chance on himself and had, by all accounts, a good season, contributing to a very good Kentucky team, but then he gets injured. And so, that's something for Richie to think about, unfortunately, because I think if Richie comes back and has another season like the one he has right now, and possibly even better, especially playing against or alongside AJ Debonsa, and think of the two of them. Like, if Debonsa's getting slowed down, double team, whatever, and to have someone like Richie Saunders there as your number 2 to go and clean up and do the dirty work and can still score. I mean, that is a guy you want to come back. But if he thinks he can go into the NBA and play and contribute, then I don't know. So again, if this is the last Richie Saunders game, like, it's a fitting one. I mean, let's pull up his stats here. You look at it, 6 rebounds, good. 3 offensive rebounds. Again, always doing the dirty work. And then 2 assists, 4 steals. I thought he had a block. They must have, I don't know. It's hard to tell when it gets cluttered down there, but he was in there. He did turn the ball over, but he also forced some turnovers. And like, when he slid on his knees and went and stole that ball right out, and then he gets fouled, and just all the plays he does, just getting in the mix is just that's the reason why he's everyone's, like, so many people's favorite player. And so again, that for me is the tough part. Who knows what's going to happen with this team going forward? Obviously, next year we've got a lot to look forward to with AJ Debonsa coming and with that team. And I think with the other recruits are going to say, wait, Kevin Young came and did what in his first year with these guys? And I could come and be a part of that alongside DeBonsa. Like, that this team is going to be able to build. Might take a little while for him to gel. They bring in a lot of new pieces. You got Xavier Staten and some others. You lose Foose. So, there's pieces you have to replace, but, obviously a strong core. So it'll be, I'm not worried about next year. I think next year there's a very good chance that team should be at least as good. I think the expectation is at least Sweet 16 for that team because of all the hype, whether that's fair or not. But you think, okay, possibly that team could even build on it and go even deeper and make an even deeper run. But which was to your point here, that they're going to be very exciting. Yeah, and they're going to be exciting at the very least. And 1-2 says, do we get Demon and Saunders and Keita back, plus DeBonsa and elite transfer? Could be even better next year. Yeah, sorry, that's what I was just talking about, to your point. So, yeah, if those guys come back, I would say Keita comes back for sure. I mean, you never know, actually, nowadays. Like, anybody could be for hire, for the right amount. But I think – I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm delusional, but I just feel like this team has really bought in with this coaching staff, and they're really invested. And I think that Keita, it seems to make sense that he'd want to be back, but who knows what he wants. And but yeah, you get Demon and Saunders, Keita, DeBonsa. I mean, that is, and whoever else they stick in there. As the fifth starter, that is a really, really good, exciting team. But who knows if we get them back? Let's see. John Drinkard says, hate to be that guy, but even with their 3-point shooting, this game would have been close if the refs weren't so blatantly pulling for Bama. I'm not sure when you hopped on. I kind of made that point. Like, it killed the momentum, which definitely impacts everything, because at the end of the day, you're gonna be like, oh, well, those 2 technical free throws didn't make a difference. No, but the time that they came to swing the flow of the game, give Alabama 2 more points on there after BYU was able to finally hit a 3, and it felt like the crowd was roaring a little bit, and to stop the game and do that. So I'm with you. You never know. It was early on enough in the game where some of those calls were coming, and when, that all played out, and you never know. You never know. I do think if BYU keeps it close, I still think Bama was shooting well enough that maybe even if it doesn't come a blowout, it'd be very tough to beat them. But you never know, because maybe they start tightening up because they see the lead start slipping away and BYU's playing really well. And, maybe because of that, they start missing. Because once you get up big, the pressure's off, things are flowing. But, we could talk about what ifs all we want. It didn't happen that way. And so ultimately, the better team tonight won. And, hats off to them. BYU football says BYU makes 5 more 3-pointers and stops Alabama from getting 5 less. BYU wins the game. Like I said, when they beat VCU, it was icing on the cake. From there on out, BYU is going to be even better next year. Yeah, just getting past the first round was huge. We think about how ecstatic we were with that. That was a great accomplishment for this team. And I think anything less than that with this team, after the expectations that they set on how well they were playing throughout the latter part of the season, it would have been very disappointing, way more disappointing than last year. Last year, we knew the team had a ceiling because they were not going to likely have 3 nights where they're shooting, superbly, 3 consecutive games where they're just shooting lights out behind for the 3, and eventually it would catch up with them. Unfortunately, it was the first round instead of a later one. But yeah, it would have been very disappointing. To have that win over Wisconsin was just fantastic. To beat a very good Wisconsin Big Ten team like that. So I'm happy with the season. I'm happy overall with the way it ended, to make it to the Sweet 16 and lose to a top team that could very well compete and make a run for the national championship. No shame in that. And you think about it, on the other end was Duke, most likely Duke. Hopefully not. I'll be pulling for our Big 12 compadres there. Let's see. Charles Todd Barnum says, they have to focus on keeping catchings. Yeah, so if we talk about people that are leaving, I would think that let's go through the roster. Saunders, I don't know. It really just depends. I don't think he goes anywhere else. I don't think he flirts with other teams. I mean, maybe he does for more NIL money, but I think at this point BYU's probably pretty loose there and say, hey, we'll give you what you need. But you know, if the NBA is calling his name, well, here I'll pull it up. Let's go through real quick. Saunders, no idea what's going through his head right now. Mag, unfortunately, out of eligibility. Keita, I would think, you know, he'd want to stay, but I don't know. You know, you never know. Jaeger Demon, I would lean towards most likely going NBA, but you never know. No, is gone. Catchings seems like a wild card. Did not really jive with this offense. Didn't get in the flow. He was talked about as, you know, first round pick, you know, coming into this season, and then was benched and barely saw time. I liked the limited minutes we saw of him, you know, through the last several games of the season. I saw a little bit more hustle, better body language from him, but I guess just wasn't getting it done. I really wanted him to hit one of those threes and just get cooking in this game. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. I think his length would have been very helpful on defense, slowing down some of their defenders, but it's hard to get in rhythm when you sit a lot and then get thrown in. Boskovic, I would think he's back. You know, they brought him over. I think he's got another season. I think he fits in well with the system. But again, you never know. Foose is gone. Hall, I would think he stays. Although who knows? Maybe Demon comes back and Hall doesn't. But I don't know. I don't see it working like that. Elijah Crawford, I know he was really close with his coach. Which coach was it that brought Crawford in? But he seemed more locked in than anybody. You'd see his sideline celebrations and everything. He seems like somebody that will stay, and he's very well suited to come in and fill in at that backup point guard position. And so I think his role is clear, you know, kind of play a Trey Stewart, but actually more of kind of similar because he can play some defense, but actually, you know, assuming Demon's gone and Hall was starting, you know, kind of that Dallin Hall backup point guard role and get a lot of minutes that way and playing defense. And then Dawson Baker, I think he's back. But again, any of these guys can say, hey, I could get way more minutes starting somewhere else. I'm going to go, or maybe make a little more NIL money somewhere else. I don't know. You never know anymore. But the thing I do know is that this team really felt locked in and focused. You're bought into the system that Kevin Young had him playing in. So I'd like to think that a lot of these guys can or will come back, but we never know. Let's see. 1-2 says we need a Final Four. They keep posting that stat every tournament of BYU with most appearances without a Final Four stings. Yeah, absolutely. It does sting. And you'd think that with AJ DeBonsa coming, that's kind of your window right there. That one season, getting him, especially if you had talent like Richie Saunders coming back and whoever, maybe some guys from the portal, maybe some other young talent. You'd think that is going to be BYU's best shot really since 2011 to make a Final Four. Probably, I would say, better than the 2020 team. So, yeah, probably since then. So, yeah, it needs to happen for BYU. And it does feel like this team is building towards something. What Kevin Young is building, again, it's his first year, and look what he was able to do. So, and we know how he recruits, and people seeing that are going to want to come play. And so recruiting shouldn't be a huge issue. I mean, look what he did before he even came in and he coached a single game. And now look what he's, I think it'll keep coming. So I'm not too worried. It's more about, can you get the right pieces, get them to gel and get it to figure out. And I think based on what we saw this year, I think they can. Okay, John Bailey says, at least y'all won, AJ. I called it Bama by 20. Well, you know, it was it's always a chance when you have a team that can shoot like that. So bummer. But yeah, we got AJ. So And it looks like by your profile, I'm looking at that you are a Bama guy. So, but thanks for hopping on and joining in. It says AJ already talking about hitting the portal after that Bama, well, whatever. Dude, AJ is locked in. You're sour. Bama got this win, but BYU did get AJ, and he is, I think, locked in by all accounts and bought into what BYU's doing. So I'm not worried about that. I was worried about it for a while. I'm not worried about that anymore. So, anyway, BYU football says if you're not going to be drafted in the top 15, come back and make some money. Try to improve your draft stock. I expect Catchings to be back for sure, and I really think Demon decides to stay also. Yeah, Catchings, I think, stays in college for another year. The question is, does he think BYU is the place to do it? He might think, does this coaching staff have trust in me? I do think that, like I said, I liked his body language better throughout the season. Maybe it's something he worked on, but I don't know. He might think, hey, look, I can go be a star somewhere else and get a lot of time. And you have to think too, playing alongside DeBonsa, how's that going to affect his role? You'd think that in a lot of ways it should keep him open, allow him to look really good. But maybe he's thinking, hey, I play kind of a similar position. I don't know. I do not know what's going through his head, but I really hope Catchings comes back because I think with a little more development, with a little more time, yeah, he could be really good. But it doesn't seem to make sense for him to go to the NBA right now. He probably still gets drafted, probably in the second round or something, based on just projections of his talent and his upside. But and Demon could, if he feels like his draft stock dropped enough. I mean, the first two games of the tournament, he was locked in, and I think that really helped his draft stock. Tonight, I mean, it was the 3-point shooting more than anything, but he still, a couple rebounds, 7 assists, a couple steals. He looked good. He didn't look probably as solid as he did those first two games, but he looked locked in. I mean, he had that moment where BYU played really well. They still hit a corner three. He saw his shoulders slump, and then he gets down on the other end and he gets it, and he just jacks up a terrible three. I think he even airballed it. And it's just, I don't know, things like that, what NBA scouts are going to make of it. But in the NBA, he's also not going to have to shoot that many threes. So I don't know. It's going to be a different kind of game. But so I don't know what his draft stock is right now. I read one thing with him the other day, and I think it did have him in the top 15. But again, I understand his girlfriend at BYU is still going to be there, so maybe he wants to stick around. I don't know. But if he comes back, I'd be more than happy to have him. But if he can go be a draft pick, a lottery pick, I think he needs to do it. And I think that looks good for BYU too. Say, hey, we just had a lottery pick. Now we got AJ DeBonsa 2 years in a row with lottery picks, bring in a lot of other young talent. And, it's just the beginning for this program. So BYU football says next year players are going to want to play with AJ DeBonsa also. Absolutely. BYU is going to be fine next year. Oh, yeah. It's just, which players, regardless, even if all these guys who could be looking at going pro, go pro, or, some guys transfer, BYU will be able to retool. I mean, you look at what Kentucky did this year. This was Mark Pope, right? And with BYU couldn't get out of the first round, and he retooled that Kentucky team, basically all transfers, and new guys, and was able to put together a really good Kentucky team. And we'll see what they do. They're also in the Sweet 16, so you can do it. But I do think some having chemistry and some guys who've been in the program, and you infuse it with more talent, is the way to go. But that's not always possible. So AJ is capitalized ding dong. I think that's in response to our Bama friend here, but he's locked in. So 1-2 says, I am very happy with this team and Kevin Young. No screw up coaching meltdowns. I still have a little PTSD from that one Pope season meltdown. I think everyone has a lot of confidence in Kevin Young and what he's doing and when he's coaching and what they're putting together and the scheme, and just his composure in the game and being able to stay dialed in and make good calls, timely timeouts, and all that. So, yeah, Kevin Young, is it. And with the way that he can recruit and coach, he's not like Calipari, who I feel like is not that he's a bad coach, but it felt like he was just recruiting, super talented classes and that was it. It was on talent alone, which is why I feel like there'd been drop off. Although, this year they've made a Sweet 16 run. So who knows, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but Kevin Young, when you've got the ability to recruit like that, but then shown that he can also coach as well as he can coach, I just think it's no brainer. It's going to start opening doors to a lot of guys who previously would not have been interested in BYU at all. So said Demon had 11 straight points. Yeah. But it's going to the rim, right? And that's what I've been saying all season. Like, he's got to go downhill. And then I'm okay with him taking some threes when it's in the flow of the offense. And it comes because people are afraid of him, to kind of guard off of him because they're afraid of him driving to the basket. But I think that's where he's really dangerous, and he's most fun to watch with him going downhill like that. So yeah, he definitely had a good night. He just, I every time he gets mentioned in these broadcasts, so I have to think, is this, the perception of him is his 3-point shooting, and going 1 of 8 tonight was not great. Even just a few more of those could have, at a timely threes, if they'd gone in, could have helped quite a bit at certain points throughout the game. So yeah, I don't know if that was in response to something I'd said or you're just pointing out, but yeah, Demon, I would love to have Demon back. I just think if he can be a lottery pick, he should do it. And Richie Saunders, depending on what he's hearing, I don't know if his draft stock is going to be as high. Like, if you're thinking like truly what's best for him, it could be that, go, test the waters. And now, of course, nowadays you can test the waters without an agent. So both could do that and kind of hear what they're saying, what people are telling them, and make a decision there and still come back. So we'll see what happens with that. I am very interested. It's crazy because you never thought that Richie would be, that guy, but he is, and it's awesome. If he does come back, though, I wonder, like, does Richie end up playing his way into being on like the Mount Rushmore of BYU basketball players? And I would say probably, at least in terms of, fan reception. Like, how many players are so well beloved as Richie because of the way he plays and how hard he plays out there? So pretty awesome. And what a great season. I'm regardless happy for him and had so much fun this season. There should be so much to be happy about. We made the Sweet 16. It's just fantastic. And I've loved so much of it and so many great games. And to think that BYU did it, because everyone's been talking about, you hear it on all the podcasts, all the shows, whatever, talk about where does this season fall in? And, this doesn't have the, they didn't make the Elite Eight like Danny Ainge did. They didn't have the hype like some of those Jimmer seasons did. But what this team was able to do late in the season and in the Big 12 in a power conference against really good competition, and the way they're able to step up. And this is all in the first year of Kevin Young. That I think it was the Hype Train podcast. So I'm not going to steal this because it was like Jimmer season. It felt like a culmination of a lot of things and a building to that, like this Jimmer phenomenon that just took over. But this feels like the beginning of something, which is crazy because that bodes really well for BYU going forward. So you have to feel really good about what this season was and what we have on the horizon for next year. Really excited about that. Obviously, we all are. The Jimmer season, nothing will ever be as electric as Jimmer Mania or as impactful. Jimmer Mania alone, I don't know if a phenomenon like that could be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, but they need to do that because it was just so encompassing of, like, everybody knew him. Everybody knew who Jimmer was. Obviously, BYU doesn't have a player like that this year, but this team is probably deeper, more well-rounded, and they're not playing in the Mountain West and the WCC. They're playing in the Big 12. So really love what this team accomplished, even if it doesn't have that same level of Jimmermania. This to me is something really, a building point and kind of a statement for this BYU program moving forward. 1-2 says Richie is already on the BYU Mount Rushmore for me. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go through, and it's hard because it's like, being a little kid, especially growing up in the Eastern time zone, where BYU games weren't being broadcast. I can't, most of that doesn't mean as much. There's a lot of names. And then, anything before my lifetime, it's really hard to weigh those things. And so all I'm going off of is, my own memory. And obviously I'm biased towards that from, later high school into college and on. And for me, yeah, personally, Richie is there, but is that the right answer? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at that and think of it some more. Maybe we'll do another video on that here, especially as we get to the off season. Want to do some other content, get into a little bit more about potential recruits, who BYU needs to go after, what they need to think about. Obviously, with some of the holes that we know will be there with the guys that are graduating. You get people to fill their shoes, but and yeah, we'll cover this team, football, and some more. So again, even though it'll be the off season, we won't be doing probably as many live shows like this, these reaction videos, but we will be putting out videos and other content. So please do subscribe to the channel and catch all that, and join us as we break all this down during the off season and look ahead to football and basketball alike. We'll be covering all this as news breaks down with what is actually going to happen with this roster. Very excited to see Kevin Young continue to cook in his second, and this time he'll have a full off season to do it. I mean, look what he did in partial off season. He was able to bag the number one recruit, and now he's got a full off season to build around him. So really excited for that going forward. BYU football says BYU football recruit McKay Madsen threw the shock put, however you pronounce it. Yeah, thank you. Got me too. In a state record, 65 feet this week. Yeah, so I saw the clip kind of on Twitter, but it was while the game was going on, so I didn't probably give it the due diligence it deserves. But yeah, that guy is a beast. I'm really excited about him coming on the team and some of the other new guys. So we'll get into all that here in the off season. Really look forward to covering football. It's so awesome that BYU is doing so well right now in the two biggest sports and the other sports too. Like, what a year. You start off this athletic year with Kenneth Rooks winning silver. I sat and watched that game. I made sure, like, that was appointment viewing, and that was one of the most exciting sporting moments that I've ever watched. My whole family thought I was freaking out. They didn't know what I was doing, and it was so exciting. But then to go on and unfortunately, it was a little bit of a down year for women's soccer. But you look at what cross country did with the men's and women's championships and what they continue to do, and then football, basketball, and it's just been an amazing time to be a Cougar right now. And it's so fun, especially you think about all those years in independence and feel like it was building towards something, and to kind of finally see it culminating to this time when BYU is able to flourish is really amazing. So bummer of a loss tonight, but what a great time to be a Cougar fan, and looking forward to this next season. And I'm really excited about that. So again, we'll cover all that, but 1-2 here. I got a few more comments here. Let's see. Not sure what's happening here. I think my okay, here we go. It's a bummer to have the season end, 4 months to football. Yeah, it's great. And what's cool though is that basketball no longer feels like something just to hold us over until football. Like basketball is appointment viewing now for us, and it's awesome. I wish there wasn't a time of year where we didn't have to go without either of those, but unfortunately there is baseball. I know that's not what BYU is known for, but the last couple of years I've gotten into later in the season, watching some college baseball, and I watched a little bit of BYU, but getting into the World Series and stuff, and had a lot of fun with that. It was nice. It'll never probably be there for me where football and basketball are, but just entertaining nonetheless. So maybe we'll start covering some baseball here to hold us over until we get to football season. We'll see. 1-2 says, official tweet from BYU team. After being projected to finish 9th in the Big 12 conference, our season comes to a close in the Sweet 16 with a 26-10 record. The best is yet to come, Cougar Nation. Absolutely. So much to be happy about. And that's what's cool too. As I was saying before, it's not like this is what, this was our best shot. Like this was our crack and this was at it. And this is the team. It feels like this is just the beginning. And better things are going to continue to come in both basketball and football. I think football is really going to be able to build on what they did last year. And, we expect at this point to have another good season. It shouldn't come out and surprise us. Problem is they're not going to surprise anybody. So everyone's going to be gunning for BYU. But I think BYU, I believe in what they're putting together. BYU football says Rider Lions. Leave it to BYU football to change the sport on us again, although we were talking about football already. Rider Lions and Brock Harris are very good friends. That is good to know. Saw that Rider Lions was taking selfies in the bathrooms there at BYU. So hopefully he had a good visit. McKay Madison. I thought it was Madison. Rider Lions and Brock Harris are very good friends. Go Cougs. All right. Well, I'm excited about BYU football and the potential there for all the recruits coming in. So, again, what a good time to be a Coug. Appreciate everyone for coming on and hanging out with us and joining in the chat. Said sorry. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I always appreciate you coming on and giving input and being in the chat here. That's why we do it. So 1-2 says, are the seniors going to get pro deals in overseas leagues, etc.? I have no idea. I would think at least some of these guys are going to be able to. I have no idea, like a Trevin Nell, or if that's even what he wants. Who knows? You would think a guy like Mag or Foose, I would think for sure that somewhere in a league overseas that they'd be able to go get it done. Mag could probably even go to Australia. I think from what I understand, they've got a decent basketball league down there. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's in store for these guys, but hopefully if they want to keep playing, that they're able to find opportunities to. Good question. I'll be excited to follow their careers and see what they're up to after this, but awesome. Well, let's keep rooting for the rest of our Big 12 conference members throughout this tournament and against SEC teams. And hopefully, one of these other guys can pull it out and we'll have a good showing. But as for BYU, bummer of a loss, but very happy with the season where we ended. Got to be proud. The future is very bright for BYU athletics across the board. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Again, if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel as we continue to cover BYU sports throughout the whole offseason and as we gear up for football. And 1-2 says, thanks for having this forum. It's been a lot of fun to vent and or celebrate with fellow fans. That's why we do it. That's why I started this initially, was because I was always, I have this channel, but I was usually recording videos and posting. But I would get on after these games and I'd want to talk to somebody or I'd want to watch content, and there wasn't anything. I couldn't find stuff. And then I came and I was like, I'll do it. And so I really appreciate all you guys coming and especially the regulars and any new people we have joining in the chat, because that's why we do it, is just to have this talk. So BYU fans get together and vent or to celebrate together. And it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, don't go anywhere. Keep coming back. We'll keep covering a lot of this stuff. And hopefully we'll see you again in these live chats in the fall. So appreciate all you, and as always, go Cougars.